Hello, my name is Ken Adams. I'm a research professor at the Desert Research Institute in Reno, Nevada, and I study the quaternary history of the Great Basin, fluvial lake basins, alluvial fans, etc., etc. And so in this short video I'm going to talk a little bit about the surface characteristics of one of the youngest alluvial fan units that you will find on the Wassuk Range, Piedmont. And so I'm standing on the Wassuk Range, Piedmont, on the west side of Walker Lake. The Wassuk Range is over here to my left. I'll show you it in a minute. And there's a whole series of alluvial fans that have been shed out of these canyons in the Wassuk Range over time. And based on their interactions with the shorelines that are also found in this basin, and we know the age of a lot of these shorelines, we can sort of start working out the stratigraphy or the age relationships of these fans as well, and how they relate to the rangefront fault and so forth. And so you can also sort of look at the surface characteristics of this fan and say, yes, this is really young, but how young? So based on the fact that this particular fan traverses downslope and rolls right over a shoreline that's about 1,500 years old, we know pretty much for sure that this is younger than 1,500 years. So there's Walker Lake out there. You can also see US 95, and there's a semi rolling along it. Okay, so very bouldery fan. If we look up slope, we'll see a fault scarp or two, and so we know this fan is younger than 1,500 years. That places that fault rupture older than 1,500 years, but it's younger than the Lahontan high stand at 15,000 years. And I think we can do a little bit better about constraining the age, but that's for another video. And so you can see my dog Lucy walking around over there. Very big boulders on this fan, very fresh morphology. There is, I'm seeing a boulder right here that's kind of disintegrated. And so this is 1,500 years worth of physical weathering. This rock is just shattered. It's not a granite, probably some sort of meta something, I'm not sure. Okay, but most of the granitic boulders are pretty fresh. This is a spot that looks like something has grussified right here, and you wouldn't really expect that much weathering in this short of time. But I'm walking around here, and there is here's another one of these sort of yellowish, tannish boulders that's just fallen apart. And these wants to look closer. So this stuff is shattering, and it's probably, who knows, frost action. But the granitic boulders are still pretty competent, and so you can see pretty large. This big boulder right up above us, that thing's got to be 5 or 6 meters along the long axis. And there's plenty of boulders out here that are multiple meters, several, 1 to several, and lots of finer stuff as well. And so you can be pretty much assured that the process that deposited this bouldery material was a debris flow coming out of the steep canyon upslope off of those steep slopes of the Wassuk Range. And probably the only way that happens is when there is intense rainfall, high intensity rainfall of inches per hour, and that is enough to get this sort of thing moving. You're not going to get that kind of precip rate typically with winter storms, so this is more of a summer thunderstorm kind of phenomena, most likely. And so back to the surface, there are debris flow levees, there are lobes, you see some slight imbrication. There's no rounding on these rocks, but you know, granite rocks or granitic rocks don't tend to round very well anyway. So it's all very fresh looking. If you were to dig into this a little bit, there's not much dust. There's virtually no soil development, and don't pay attention to how shallow I'm digging this. This is not a proper soil pit by any stretch. This is not even a little dog hole kind of a soil pit. This is just a scraping, but what I'm trying to show here is there's no dust in the surface of this. Back in a different video that I just shot a little while ago, I was looking at a surface cryptogamic crust that was a lot of dust, but on this part of the fan, probably the same fan unit, there is no dust, or very little dust in that's impregnated the surface. And so basically the morphology here is fresh, it's raw. There hasn't not much has happened except for the weathering of a certain type of lithology on this surface, and we'll look at some other older fan surfaces, and also pay attention to how bright the granitic boulders are. They look very fresh. Not all of them, but most of them. So here's a relatively weathered one, and here's another one. So they are here, the weathered ones, the ones that have probably had a previous surface exposure history, but out here they're mostly white. And so we'll walk up on a different surface and look at an older fan surface, but same processes.